So this arrived at my door recently, and I must be completely out of the loop because I had never heard of it before. This is Murder in Metal City, which is a deluxe adventure for Starfinder 2nd Edition. It includes a 64-page adventure for first-level characters. There's 6 pre-generated characters, there's maps and handouts and reference cards and tokens. You can see it in front of me here. It's pretty much everything you need outside of the rules themselves. Apparently, there's also a new playable ancestry included as well. It looks to be a cyberpunk-style detective noir story that takes place on the planet Abalon. Since we don't have a starter set for Starfinder 2nd Edition yet, I'm curious to see if this one might be a good jumping on point for new game masters and players, or those maybe just making that leap over to 2nd Edition. You can see my overview of Starfinder 2E in the video in the corner up there. So with all that in mind, and with thanks to Paizo for sending it my way, let's take a look at Murder in Metal City. Enhance and improve your 5e games today with Hitpoint Press. Explore the whimsical dark carnival setting of Heckna. Will you see through the glitzy charade or fall prey to Heckna's everlasting torment? Or enhance your 5e games with animated spell, condition, and townsfolk cards. Add a slew of creative and gorgeously illustrated magical items with the Griffon Saddlebag, and face down more than 30 innovative 5e villains with their big book of big bads. Learn more today at Hitpoint Press by using our link in the corner or down below. Inside the box we have our adventure booklet, 6 pre-generated characters, our GM reference sheet, a 2-sided map, a series of tokens to use in lieu of minis, 20 handouts, and 24 cards detailing NPCs and gear. So let's talk about this adventure. Murder in Metal City is for first-level characters, and it holds your hand more than most Paizo adventures, which is not to say that it reads like baby's first adventure. It is a fairly sandboxy style story with more of an emphasis on investigation than straight-up combat. It's not dumbed down or any more railroady than any other Starfinder or Pathfinder adventure, but it's written more to a beginner audience, giving you more of a scaffolded experience. Now, we are obviously going to get into some slight spoilers here, so if you think you might play this adventure, send this video to your game master instead of watching the rest of it yourself. Now, with that out of the way, if you saw my preview of the Starfinder, the new Starfinder Galaxy Guide, which is up there in the corner right now, I mentioned that it laid out quite a few plot hooks that I thought would be explored more in some of the upcoming Starfinder books. And one of those plot hooks involved the first ones, who are an enigmatic race from antiquity, who landed on the planet Avalon thousands of years ago or more, and seeded it with a race of sentient robotic entities and 9 huge cities. And just as mysteriously, they then left and were never seen again. At least until recently, when what seems like a First One ship crash-landed on the planet Akaton, and that wreck is known as the Wreck of the Returned. In Murder in Metal City, we are getting our toes wet in that mystery of who the first ones were and what they wanted. The player characters all have a mutual friend named Tier 99 Professor, Tierney to his friends, who was studying a recovered relic from that crash. The player characters are gathered together because Tierney has apparently been murdered, and it's up to the PCs to discover who did it and why and how. And this is very much set up like an investigation, as I said. The players gather clues, often in form of little handouts like this that they can get from their game master, and they have to go interrogate people whose pictures they can see on some of these little forms here. So if I can grab one that has a picture on it. Like this person right here, so you can see the art. And there's all sorts of obstacles that they're going to be in their path that they're going to have to solve with a lot of skill checks and a lot of creative thinking. So I'm going to leave you to discover the outcome of what the murder mystery is. And while the revelations don't necessarily blow up the whole first one story wide open, they do set up the stage for the next part of the story. And interestingly, the next chapter of the story isn't an upcoming full adventure path, but it's the current season of the organized play Starfinder Society called Invasion's Edge. And as a quick reminder, you can go play those modules at public events if you want to, at cons, at your local game stores, or you can just get your game master to run them like regular adventures. They're available online at Paizo.com. So if you want to move forward with your characters and stories from this box here, you can go do that with the Starfinder Society little modules. But the adventure here itself is pretty fun, and it captures a lot of what makes Starfinder special. I think you can probably run it without having the core books yourself. You can use the free resources over at the Archives of Nethys, but also a lot of the basic mechanics that you need are reprinted in the little adventure book to help you out. It's not quite at the level of a true beginner's box with its own little succinct rulebook itself that makes it accessible to people who may be entirely new to tabletop role-playing games altogether. But if you're at all familiar with the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules, I think you're going to be able to pick this up and run with it. To be clear, there isn't a separate rulebook in here, but the basic rules are available for free online. So I think this is going to be a pretty fun little experience for both beginners and veteran players. Also, the toolbox at the end of these books always gives you fun little toys and references that you can use in the current adventure and any other you may want to run in the future. You always get monsters, and here you get various anasites. There's a hardlight little dragon creature. There's some Jinsul for fans of previous Starfinder Society missions, if you know who the Jinsul are, and there's a couple more. You also get a pretty lengthy setting guide for Avalon and the City of Striving, where this adventure takes place. But perhaps most excitingly, you get a new ancestry to play in 2nd edition. This book adds in the Kaisar, who are plant-like humanoids from Castroville, who were an ancestry in 1st edition introduced in the Pact Worlds book. You can find Kaisars in Avalon's ice wells, which the players will visit in this adventure. So let's take a look at the rest of the stuff in the box. The cards are quite large. They're 4 by 6 inches like this, and as you might expect, the item cards feature the art on the front and the stats on the back, though the NPC cards like this one just have the name on the back. I think there was a missed opportunity here to maybe include like a little NPC summary or maybe a little role-playing guide on the back of each of the NPC cards, especially since a full stat block probably wouldn't fit here. But it is nice to have a way to show off the NPC art to your group, which is sometimes something you can't really do easily in person when you just have the art in the books. The handouts aren't quite what you might be used to from something like Beetle and Grimm's. These aren't on kind of various distressed types of paper, but they are all kind of reprinted like there's something on your computer screen. They're like emails and logs and scans and things like that. So fundamentally, all of these basically look the same, but they're all on this kind of thin, glossy paper, which are also 4 inches by 6 inches. But for an adventure like this, which has a lot of lore and mysteries to solve, it's fantastic to have these. Though it does make me think that there's an opportunity for Paizo to create like a Starfinder web portal or app where you can have information like this that the Game Master can like digitally give the players access to when they find it or receive it. And you could create something essentially like their own version of the Star Trek LCARS, which was like the graphical user interface in Star Trek. I'd love to see what an in-universe Starfinder computer looks like. I don't know, maybe something like this. Well, I do like having these physical papers, which are great for playing around a table. I think you could have fun in a Starfinder setting by making it like an immersive computer experience too with your phones or tablets. You could also just sell packs of little digital handouts for each adventure, though they did just announce that they are making a Starfinder computer game with a studio called Epic Tellers Entertainment, so maybe we're going to see more like Starfinder computer interfaces there, which I don't know why I'm so curious about. That game is called Afterlight, if you want to check it out. I don't know much about it yet, but anyway, I'm far off topic now. One last thing about the handouts is, unlike those Beetle and Grimm boxes, these are embedded in the adventure, where you can see exactly when to give out various handouts, which is very helpful. Like it'll say, give your players handout number 1 at this point, so you know exactly when to use these, so you won't forget any of them. The GM reference sheet here is also really cool. You can see it right here. On one side, you have a place where you can track down, on this side, who your player characters are. You know, has information for their name and class, language, and census, and any notes you might want to have down. And on the other side, you have a place to track down the clues that the player should be finding and the NPCs they'll be meeting, which page number you can reference for all that stuff. And there's a place to track their XP and their loot. We also get this sheet over here of a whole bunch of tokens. There's 108 of them. They're double-sided with the same art on each side. They feature the name of the monster as well as a number, so you get like Drone 1 and Drone 2 and Drone 3, which is really helpful if you're tracking HP and conditions and things like that. All the tokens are about the same size, they're about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And here you can see the double-sided map. It's pretty large at 24 by 30 inches. One side features a crashed ship in the ice wells, and the other side has an interior setting from the adventure. There are quite a few other maps drawn for you in the actual adventure book. If you're running this module online, I'm sure it's possible to grab them and use them in your BTTs. But if you're playing in person, you're just going to have to, I guess, redraw those in some way. I definitely would have preferred if all the encounter maps needed for the adventure were included in the box, since they already had map art completed. Finally, we have our pre-generated characters. We get Lunar 17, a networked android mystic with a detective background. Nitpick Bennett, a tunnel Yosoki witch warper with a city slicker background. Old Growth Wildflower, an inflorescent Kaiser soldier with a recluse background. Vorza Moonshot, a Night Stalker Vesk Solarian with the outlaw background. Jadana, a shipborne Kasatha operative with a spacefarer background. And last but certainly not least, Tapkey, a skitter-raised Skittermander envoy with the village people background. No, sorry, the grifter background. One side of each character sheet gives you the stat blocks like they would be for like an NPC or monster, while the other side shows you the information as a proper Starfinder character sheet, though it's in pretty small print, so yeah, you may need your glasses if you're of a certain age like I am. You can actually see Lunar 17 and Nitpick on the cover of the box here. And these are great, maybe the best thing in the entire box. The characters have a few paragraphs of background, which are full of personality. It explains how each of them are connected to Tierney, who's the victim in this murder mystery. You even get a little section explaining how each character approaches combat, exploration, and healing, of all things. I would very much encourage my players to choose one of these characters, but at the very least, you can use them as a template for the players making their own characters. You can be like, read the story, make a story like this. So let me tell you a little bit about the actual components just for a second. While everything in here is completely functional, I think you can tell that they were trying to keep the cost down a little bit. The handouts are on that really thin, glossy cardstock, like pages of a magazine. The reference cards are on an actual cardstock, so not too bad. The tokens over there are fine, though I would have preferred if they had just been able to use standard Paizo pawns that we're used to getting, and we can mix and match them. These are also a little bit small for my taste. As far as I can tell, there's only one large creature in the entire adventure proper, I think, who is a dire Shroomclaw, and it doesn't get a token here because all these tokens are medium. And the flip mat isn't a standard Paizo flip mat. This one is non-laminated, but it is on fairly glossy paper, so you can't really use it safely with a wet or dry erase marker, at least I assume you can't. What's a little surprising is that the box comes with this cardboard insert that you can see here. So everything fits snugly inside, but there's a lot more room in here. You can fit all sorts of stuff if you want to when you're running it. If you're going to take the box over to your friend's house, you can throw in your dice, you can throw in other materials here. It even fits a GM screen, which reminds me, I don't think I have a Starfinder 2nd Edition GM screen. I need to get one. But overall, this set is great. It's a fabulous jumping on point for Starfinder. For folks like me who don't have a lot of free time to devote to longer adventures, this one is really compelling. I don't know exactly how long it might take to get through it all, but I think it's shorter than your typical single book adventure path. Like a Pathfinder adventure path is about 90 pages. This one's about 60 pages. If you got the 2 playtest adventures, those are also 60 pages. So if you've run those, I assume this one will take about the same amount of time. And the characters aren't expected to even reach level 2 until very close to the end of the adventure, assuming that you're using XP. So frankly, I'm very tempted to run this myself and maybe film it at this table, because I'm not allowed to have fun unless I can also make it work. And I like that the lore here is very investigation heavy rather than like a dungeon crawl. It being level 1 also makes it approachable for new players who may be coming to your table. And I just like that the sci-fi urban noir vibe of the whole thing just really vibes with me. Another thing they could have added is a soundtrack, honestly, if we're going to go with this whole detective motif. I would have loved to seen also a set on Sirenscape for sound effects for it. I just checked before I filmed this. And they do have one for the Cosmic Birthday one-shot, which is one of those playtesting ones I was mentioning earlier. And it kind of makes me want to run that too because I have all the sound effects. But yeah, I'd love to see more box sets like this. It's just a matter of finding that sweet spot that balances the quality and the quantity of the components with the price. This set, Murder in Metal City, is available nowish for about $40, which is pretty great. You can also get the module as a PDF, or you can get it on Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, or Roll20. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. I guess my question would be, would you be willing to pay like $60 if it came with more maps and proper Paizo pawns instead of tokens? I think I probably would, though to be fair, if I do run this adventure, I'm going to be trying to use my new Starforged terrain pieces as much as possible, so maybe I wouldn't even need those maps. I'm pointing to me because they're in front of me, but you can't see them. If you haven't seen my videos about the Starforged terrain, you can see my playlist in the corner up there. It's pretty fantastic. And speaking of minis, don't miss out on the Living Minis Kickstarter campaign happening now by our sponsor, Hit Point Press. Really fun stuff in there. But that's it for me today. So for now, please stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I will see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.